What's going on, everybody? For today's adventure, I'm going to be working on my neighbor's car. It's a 2006 Chevy Impala LT. He says he's been having troubles with the brakes, so we'll take a look at him today. There's two bolts on the back side of the caliper that you have to take out. We hit them with WD-40 really quick to make them come off a little bit easier. Since we're throwing away our old brake pads, I don't care if I'm going to scratch them up or bang them, so I'm using a screwdriver to push the fluid back into the reservoir. Now, it doesn't matter if I break them or chip them or anything. And the reason I'm doing this is because the new pads are going to have a lot more grip to them or meat on the pad itself, so we have to accommodate for that new addition of material between there, because the old ones are going to be smaller than the new ones. So we just push that piston back so we have enough room to slip it back over the rotor. As you can see, there's a pretty big difference between the new and the old pads. This kit that I got came with new hardware, so I'm going to be replacing those as well. This came with some brake silicone, so we'll just put it on the new parts while we put them in. You want to put that silicone anywhere where there's going to be two metal pieces touching together. And I'm just going to lay a quick little bead on here and then rub it in with my fingers. Once we've put the silicone on both sides, we'll replace the hardware into the caliper and put the new brake pads in. Don't forget to do the other side as well. Since the new brake pads are going to be riding in the new hardware, it's a good idea to put some silicone where the hardware is going to meet the brake pad, just in case you miss the spot on the hardware. Now that we've got all the silicone on it, it's time to install the brake pads. If you're like me and you don't like to wear the gloves, you want to make sure that if you have greasy hands, to not touch the surface of the brake pad. Got one side done, and now it's time to move on to the back one. With a single pot caliper, you're actually able to move the bracket system around. So if you're having problems getting the back one in, just move the bracket backwards or forwards and you're able to get that new brake pad in. Now that both brake pads are in, it's time to reinstall. There's 2 bolts on the backside that need to be threaded in and tightened down. Make sure that they're good and tight. Now that we got the new pads in and the brakes reinstalled, it's time to put the tires back on. If you're having troubles lifting up the tire, a good trick is to use your toes to actually lift the tires up. That way you're not lifting the whole tire with your arms, you're just assisting with your toes. Once you get it aligned, you want to push on the tire with both of your knees to hold it on. That frees up both of your hands to get the lug nuts and put the lug nuts in. Since I'm using an impact gun, I only have to start the first couple threads of the actual lug nut so I don't cross thread it when I use the impact gun. When reinstalling tires, I like to use a crisscross pattern. This allows the lug nuts to actually align the tire. It's always a good idea to double back and hit every lug nut again just to make sure that one hasn't come loose or gotten any extra slack in there. Once you're done with all 4 brakes, it's time to remove the jacks. After you get everything completed on the outside, one of the main things you want to do before you even take off is actually pump the pedal, because you've got all that brake fluid away from the calipers into the reservoir so that you could get the brake pads over the drums or the rotors, and now you've got to close that gap, and that first couple brake applies you're not gonna have any brakes. So it's crucial to pump your brakes before you move your vehicle. And that first apply, it's going to go straight to the floor with no resistance. Now we're getting a little bit more fluid in it. There we go, now we're getting resistance. Give it a couple extra just in case. Now that we pumped all that fluid back into the brakes, we want to go check that reservoir to see if we're low or not. And if we're low, then we need to add some more fluid to it. Reservoir right there. Plenty of fluid in it. Actually, we might even have a little bit. I'll go siphon some of that. A lot of brakes have a certain amount of the first part of the pad where they're actually more aggressive than the rest of the pad to help them seat into the grooves that are already into the rotors. So what we're going to go do is go apply the brakes, get them nice and warm, and actually set those or mate the pads to those rotors. So we'll go give it a couple, like maybe 4 good hard stops from about 30, maybe 35 miles an hour. Make sure that no one's behind me and give it a couple, or give it a good hard deceleration. all the way to 0. And we'll start again. You want to do these really quick so that the heat stays in those pads. Nobody's still behind me, that's good. One last one and then we'll turn around. Everything feels really good.